Wow. Good morning.
Mr. C, you look so tired.
Ha 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 ha. No, man, I'm jazzed. Yeah, okay, I'm tired. But I'm still jazzed though. I'm still excited. Things are still awesome. Great hat.
Thank you.
It was a very fine hat, sir. I should get
I
my
like
hat. My hair is a little skiwampus this morning.
Mr. C-ish.
Thank you. Thank you. There's a I don't know how to take that exactly. There's a scene in a film that I dearly love called Amadeus. I don't know whether you've seen this movie, but this is a movie about Mozart, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. So Mozart is a punk and kind of a jerk, but also a genius. He's a sort of a sympathetic character, but he's not a very nice guy. But he does occasionally try to be tactful, and he has this friend, sort of friend. He thinks he's his friend, named Salieri, who is another composer in the Italian court, in the Austrian court. Anyway, so Salieri writes this opera, and Mozart goes to it, and Mozart thinks it's terrible. But he can't really say that to his friend. So Salieri comes up to him and says, "What did you think? What did you think about the opera?" And Mozart looks at him, stricken. He's like, "What can I say here?" And he says, "One hears such sounds, and what can one say but Salieri?" And Salieri takes this as like a giant compliment, but of course Mozart's like, that's so when you say that my hair is Mr. C-ish, I'm going to take it as a compliment, but I'm in the back of my head. I have this quote from this movie, and I'm thinking, well, that's the way it is gonna be today. The hair is just gonna, unless I go get a hat, which maybe I'll go get a hat. We'll give it a couple minutes here to gather additional people to our class, and I got a couple things I have to pull off my computer here, otherwise this is not going to go well. So bear with me a moment while I assemble my ducks and get them in a row.
Oh, also, I'm bringing a friend today. Is that fine?
Always.
Sweet.
Ducks are watching.
Yes, that's why I'm assembling my ducks and getting them in a row so that I know if they're watching me, so that I can watch them.
Sit there, right?
Right. What is the phobia for when ducks are sure you're watching them? What's the name of that phobia?
Hey, why are you in a different spot than usual?
Because I haven't moved yet. I'm at my morning spot.
Anatidophobia. That's what it's called.
Ah. What am I doing here? Oh, there we go.
Everyone is, Jetty. We're all very envious of your pillow. We want your pillow. But we don't want it. We don't want it. We want it through the chat. We only want it through the chat.
Oh, I saw it.
Hey guys, do you know they're making a movie about clocks? That's about time.
What, are we seriously going to tell grandpa jokes? That's how we're going to start class today? Wow. Just piece of housekeeping here. Is it everybody's understanding that the next time I'm supposed to be in Idaho is the 8th of February? Evan says yes. So I'm just taking that as gospel, though. What Evan says goes, I guess. I do have an email to that effect, but I'm just trying to make sure because I have a meeting down here on the 9th that I need to make sure that I'm at. So, all right, hold on a minute. Okay. I thought so, but okay. No, I'm gonna move to my alternate location in the Batcave. So, if you get motion sick, this next part is probably not for you.
I love getting motion sick.
You people are weird.
Why? You weirdo.
I love roller coasters and anything that makes you feel like you can't tell up from down.
Okay, but that's not motion sick. Motion sick implies nauseous.
I've never
It makes me feel good.
I've never been good at those things, but then the older I've gotten, there are some things like the apple turnover and whatever that I can't even watch those. If I walk by too close, then I get all.
I like to get the butterflies in my stomach, but I don't want to throw up.
There we go.
Yeah, like that.
Butterflies are different though. That's different from getting all your inner ear is telling you things are happening that are not actually happening. And I don't like that. I don't get car sick, generally speaking. I don't get airplane sick. And the last time I was on a boat, I didn't get seasick. So maybe I don't get seasick either anymore. I used to, but I maybe don't anymore. But I definitely get spinny ride sick, if that's a thing.
Mr. C, I'm envious of you for one thing. You live so close by Lagoon. Like relative to us. Like Lagoon. I love Lagoon.
True. I don't remember the last time I was at Lagoon. But it is true. But we have a few more people down here. I mean, that's is part of the deal. We got a couple more people here. So we have some. I'll tell you the newest thing that's awesome down here, though. Some of you may have heard of this, but if you haven't, you really need to. It is a thing called Evermore. You should look up Evermore. Evermore is a sort of cosplay theme park. At Halloween, it was goblins and elves and sort of Lord of the Ringsy kind of costuming. Then for Christmas, it became Dickensian steampunky Christmas thing, right? Right, Cope?
That makes me happy.
Oh my gosh. And it's awesome. My dear friend that I used to babysit when she was a much tinier little thing and she's now an actress and a genius of various kinds. But she's the head costumer down there. So she makes all their cool costumes. You should look this up. Evermore is the name of the place. And I have been thinking, I have been thinking about this class and field trips and stuff. As you mostly, I'm sure most of you know, but if you don't, you need to. This class plus other assorteds, we are going to Greece and Rome and Greek islands and whatever. Not this coming summer, but the following summer, the 2020 summer. So,
Woo woo!
yes. So the 2020 summer is going to be epic and feature an enormous amount of crazy fun, including possibly a group of us that are going to run the marathon from Marathon. So I don't know. I'm not sure. Yes, there you go, McKenna. McKenna is on the ball today as every day and has provided you thoughtfully with a link. If you are any sort of a fantasy fan of any type
Where is it?
variety, whatever, Evermore is a thing. Alan just joined us, and my guess is that Alan has been to Evermore. I would be surprised, actually, if he had not been. It's just right here. Like, I can drive to Evermore in 10 minutes, a little less. And I have not been, even though I have a very dear friend who is the head costumer, and, like, steampunky Dickensian stuff is my jam. I haven't been. Basically, the deal is at Evermore that it's a sort of an interactive theme park. So they don't have any rides, but what they do have is quests and characters and whatever. They have an inn, a pub, whatever, and you can go. They encourage you to go in costume and become a part of the madness that's going on at the park.
Okay, real fast. Can you dress up as, like, your own kind of character, or does it have to be one from a place?
Come the way you imagine yourself fitting into whatever kind of... I'm not kidding about this. It's pretty great. I have to say. It's a pretty great idea. Cosplay is a gigantic thing anyway these days, but that's like, as in Charles Dickens. Yes, that's correct. Yes. So it's a sort of, 1800s sort of steampunk mashup thing, but with other characters and stuff. So, like, if elven kind is really your thing, then you can go as an elf if you want to, and they will find a way to interact with and adore you and build you into whatever it is that's going on at the park.
You know how many Hobbit Jedi battles will take place in that place?
I suspect those kinds of things are relatively frequent.
That would be amazing. Gandalf.
You kind of have to look and see sort of what they do, but it's kind of like Comic-Con on steroids for people who want to actually, like, not go dressed up as a character, but actually go and spend time being that character. That's I guess. For a while, my friend went around the park dressed as the White Witch with if I understand, with a partner in crime in front of her with a whip, cracking it every now and then and saying, "Make way for the Queen of Narnia." And apparently it was kind of like the highlight of the whole thing. She is an awesome White Witch. She's not quite 6 feet tall, and she did the whole, like, her costume was was awesome. Her costume was way better than Tilda Swinton's in the movie, I can tell you that. Anyway, I got to grab my iPad, and then we are going to crank that up. So maybe, I don't know, maybe I don't know what they're doing this summer, but maybe come this summer we'll have a weekend where everybody comes down and we all go over to Evermore or something. We'll do an Idaho field trip. I come to see you all the time. You should come to see me. Huh?
All the prices, by the
Wow.
way. So it's $22 for an adult, which is 13 and up, and then 15 for a kid.
I can bring my mist cloak.
He's gone.
Sorry, I ran away. Say that again.
Nothing.
What? We didn't say anything.
I was just saying the prices for for an adult, which is 13 or older, which I don't know, but it's $22, and then under that is 15, and then it looks like kids under 5 are free, but I can't really tell.
I can't speak to that. I do not have any longer any kids under 5, actually, but I can't speak to it anyway because I haven't been there at all, and that's pretty sad. But I haven't been there. Okay. There we go. Had to bring up my Aristotle. And somewhere in here I have also got Meno, which we need to talk about today. Oh, that's Demosthenes. That's something else. That's Poetics. Good. Just want to make sure I got all my stuff here because, oh my gosh, we have a ton of stuff that we need to talk about today. Dang, Abby, I'm sorry. So we will not hear from Abby or see Abby today, which is sad for all of us, but she's here. Everybody wave at Abby. Hi, Abby. We love you anyway. Okay. All right. So let's crank this up by having a discussion here. Actually, before we do that, I have a matter of serious importance that I need to discuss with you.
Are you dying?
What?
Are you dying?
No. Well, not any faster than anybody else, I don't think. But here's the deal. We have a very wide range of ages in this class. We have, in terms of trying to put a class together. Normally, as you may know, some of you may not, because if you've never been anywhere near a traditional school, then you will not know this. But they segregate kids by age. You know this, right? So they have grades. You go to first grade and second grade and third grade, but depending on how old you are. Okay, well, in this class, we would have everything from 6th grade to college freshman. So that's a pretty wide range, except in the old one-room schoolhouse type arrangements. Nobody ever attempts to teach that wide a group of ages in the same class for reasons which should be relatively obvious. There are certain things that are much easier to discuss with older students, some things that are more interesting to younger students, and so on. I'm crazy, so I said when we put the class together that I didn't care really how old anybody was, within reason. I don't want 5-year-olds here. I don't think they'd be particularly interested. And they don't laugh at my jokes. So I need kids who are at least able to understand what it is that we're talking about. However, in designing the class, it is very difficult for me to figure out what level of performance to ask for, not to say require. No one understands your jokes. Okay, thank you for that. Requiring is impossible, really, because I have no leverage in terms of I don't give out grades or any of that kind of thing. I have no stick. I don't really even have much carrot when it comes to that. But I do have a couple of things, and I want to change a little bit. Not the method by which I'm doing this, but the level of request that I'm making. So some of you maybe, if you're not acquainted with grades that much, you are probably acquainted with the concept of pre-scholar and scholar phase and those kinds of things in the TJ Ed continuum. Yes, nods of heads. Yes, if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. These are self-selected. You know that, right? Nobody comes to you and says, you are now 15, you are now in scholar phase, or you're now 14, you're in pre-scholar phase, or whatever. Some people never get to scholar phase in terms of the way they write down scholar phase, in terms of monastic scholasticism. I've never been in scholar phase, except that insofar as I have never left scholar phase since the time that I can remember. Thank you. I appreciate it. But those of you who believe yourself to be, I'm not going to use scholar phase necessarily, but serious students bent on making improvements in your personal understanding of the world and your ability to not just grasp the concepts, but also to make them a part of who you are. In order to do that, you've got to put more work in. Now, this class is awesome for me in several ways. You guys make me read things that I wouldn't have otherwise been reading. You make me grapple with concepts that I wouldn't otherwise grapple with. The discussions that we have here always teach me things, and I make connections during the class that I would not have made if we were not having this time together. So, yes, golden poop. That wasn't one of them, but yeah, anyway. The book is selling pretty well, by the way. Up around 5,000 copies so far. Keep our fingers crossed. I qualified for LDS Storymakers Guild because of that book, so I'm now a member. I am now a story maker, which is like a 10-year dream I've wanted to be. Anyway, so if you are going to, thank you, that's very kind of you. If you are going to get, whatever you're going to get out of this class is going to be commensurate with what you put into it. So when I send a bunch of readings out and you don't do them, then you have lost an opportunity to get something out of this class that you might have been available to you. That's not a good idea to do that. First off, your parents are paying, or if they're not paying, then the good citizens of the state of Idaho are paying for you to be in this class. I don't care who is paying. Somebody's paying for you to be in this class, and you really ought to get your money's worth. Second, not only did you blow an irreplaceable opportunity, you also harmed the other people in the class who might have benefited from wisdom that you could have shared with them by having done the reading. Every week when we have this class, I'm going to send out some readings that I want you to do, but also a writing that I want you to do. Now, you don't have to do the writing. You don't have to do the reading. You can come here and just laugh along with the rest of us for 2 hours, which, you know, there are worse ways to spend your day. But the more that you throw, Elijah's like, okay, good, that's it, that's for me. Those of you who would like to get more out of it, there's more available. The stuff that I'm having you read, the things that we're going to talk about, these are sort of timeless concepts. These are great classics, and they offer you opportunities to learn things that you really, you can't learn anywhere else. You're going to have to come back to this stuff one way or another if you want to learn these things. So I'm inviting you to come higher up, to come further in, as Aslan would say. There is more available to you. And the more work that you put into it, the more you will have the ability to grab that stuff. Yes, but it isn't the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Storymakers. It's LDS Storymakers. Because frankly, nobody wants to say a paragraph every time they introduce themselves. So, sorry. I suppose that's just going to have to be a major victory for Satan. I don't know what to say. Anyway, so I'm inviting you to do this. Read the email. Do the readings, do the writings, think about, process the stuff that we're talking about, engage in the conversation that we're having, take notes. I know some of you do that routinely, and that's good. But some of you don't, and you want to. You really do. So I'm inviting you to come higher up. Come further in. Okay, so that being said, our open of the conversation is a light and look here. This I should also say: if you don't get to it because life is the way that it is, that's okay. I promise you, I will probably not be disappointed in you. I can't promise I won't be disappointed, but if I am, it's because I'm making a judgment I have no right to make. I'm going to treat you like adults. I treat everybody in this class like an adult. So adults have to make trade-offs all the time between things that they want to do that both things or 3 or 4 things would all be great things to do, but you can't do them all because time doesn't work that way. So we may or may not have a discussion on the nature of time today. That may have to wait for, Copeland's like, ooh, that may have to wait for the 8th. But on the 8th, we may end up having a discussion. At the next reading that we're going to do after that, there will be an Eat Lunch with Mr. C group that will be specifically discussing a particular text. If you've read it, you can eat lunch with Mr. C and discuss that. If not, you can run around and eat lunch with whoever you want. You don't have to do it. There's no pressure. And again, I'm still gonna love you. Doesn't matter if you've done that or not. But I want to offer you an opportunity. That's what this class is about, is offering you an opportunity. And your parents are really hoping that in addition to being thoroughly entertained, which I hope that you are, that you learn and progress, that you grow, you take this stuff into yourself and it changes the person that you are. Because if the learning that you do does not change who you are, then what's the point of it? It doesn't make any difference what you know. It only matters who you are. And if your learning doesn't change the person that you are, what's the point of it? Other than you might win trivia games or whatever. I'll tell you, I'm not going to. Our class has mixed emotions. Yes, Bex.
Is this the 8th of February?
Yes.
We might be in Utah when you come.
Yeah, see, that is a thing I need to chat with your mom about. As I just noticed that. But I'm pretty sure that the email that I sent out at the beginning of the year said that I would be in Idaho on the 8th. So I may just have to come more. That made Evan's like, yeah, okay, cool, all right. And met with Jetty's Pillows approval. Oh, it's Josh's Pillows approval that I met with. Oh, sorry. I'm always glad to have the approval of Josh's Pillow. All right, so let's talk about the first topic of our class. Let's talk about a light, easy to discuss topic. What is virtue?
Virtuous.
That's nice and unhelpful. Somebody who has something.
Virtue is me.
Virtue is me. Okay, well, you're a very nice guy, Isaac. And you have many virtues, in my opinion.
Okay, so sorry, I'm interrupting, but So I would say, kind of going in the spiritual route here, that it's like the purest form that a human being can get to being Christ-like.
All right, that's pretty deep. McKenna?
I would say that virtue is what you stand for. It's like your morals and your values. It's kind of like a quality that has the capability to guide you through life, kind of.
Josh?
I originally thought it's just like a good choice of character in a way, but then I listened to Socrates' argument, and now I'm not sure anymore.
Let me warn you about Socrates. It doesn't really make much difference how sure you are that you know something. Once Socrates gets finished with you, you won't be sure anymore. Which is probably good. That's probably that. The beginnings of wisdom is not being 100% sure that you're right. Now, you may come back around to where you are sure. I'm sure about a few things that even Socrates, I think, could not argue me out of. But I'm not sure, right, that would be one of them. I'm sure there's a God, let him change that. Okay, well, I don't think he would be able to do that. But if you are sure that there's a God, but you've never considered the possibility that there might not be one, then you have some hard work ahead of you. Because I think that considering the possibility that there might not be one is a key to becoming actually sure, like to actual knowledge. I don't know. We might have to explore that for a minute. Yes. Ruby Silver Star.
Hey, come here. Come here.
I'm not hearing that. Is anybody else? No sound there, unfortunately. He probably could, Cope. That's pretty meta.
Hey, come here. No. Hey.
Hey.
Come here. Come here. No.
Give it a shot. See if it, Liza, see if it, or Elizabeth, see if that works. Yes? No? No sound. You'll have to type, unfortunately. Sorry to hear that. That was a bunch of stuff to say, too, so you're going to be typing like a paragraph. But that's all right. I want to hear what you have to say about that. Okay, so back on the nature of virtue. And we'll talk about Socrates and the Socratic method and stuff like that. But I want to stick with virtue. Okay, so back on Tea's, it's the highest and closest that one can come to Christ. That one's bending my brain a little bit. I'm having trouble figuring out what.
No, I think she's got something there.
She may, but I have to grapple with it. I'm still wrestling, and right now I'm in a chokehold and I'm not breathing well. So
you don't
elaborate. Ted, will you elaborate on that for a minute here? Help me understand what you're talking about.
Okay, for some reason the space bar wasn't working, but that's okay. So, so it kind of draws from part of the second question that you sent out of like, are we born with it or is it taught? Okay. Take this with me for a second. Okay, in my opinion, we're born with virtue. We're like, as soon as we're born, we're basically the purest human that we're ever gonna be. And then after that, it's like all And then so when we're born, we have like this. We're in this pure form, and it's basically virtue. And then as we get older, the world kind of like tricks us out of it, and then we have to relearn it. So I do think we were taught it, but we're born with it too. So it's always there in us. But then we have to kind of relearn it and re-strive for it because the world and Satan doesn't want us to have it. But like, I don't know what else to say about it.
Okay. I want to challenge a little bit on this. Our culture, and by culture, I don't just mean church culture, religious culture. I also mean social culture. We're very big on the purity, innocence, and virtue. I guess virtue. It's not a word we use a lot of children, especially very young children. I had 8 of them. And I'm not sold. I think there are virtues, no offense. I think there are virtues to children, but I don't think there's nearly as many things to recommend them as most people think there are.
What about wisdom? Because I'm pretty sure a 2-year-old doesn't have that.
Okay, and that's one of the routes that I want to go to here. So stay with me. This is a larger construct, and this is a deep and hard conversation. But like, stay with me here, okay? I try to express something. There's a difference between, I think. Oh well, let me ask you. Why should I tell you what I think? Why don't you tell me what you think? I think there's a difference between. I think there's a difference between purity and virtue. But maybe I'm wrong about that. What that a newborn baby or even a young toddlery kind of baby is pure, I'm unprepared to dispute. I'm not asserting it, but I'm unprepared to dispute that. But that they possess large quantities of virtue, I need a really tight definition of virtue before I'm going along with that. Toddlers are stinkers, okay?
Hey, I just said a baby, not a toddler. They're different.
What? Wait.
What's the difference?
At what point does it stop being a toddler, stop being a baby?
Like, basically, okay, so from the moment a child is born, immediately it starts taking in concepts of the world around it, okay?
Okay.
But there's, like, this small point of time when nothing, like, things are affecting it, but it's not affecting it negatively. Until, like, you go home or whatever, or somebody says something that, like, isn't, like, that might not necessarily be bad, but also isn't, like, the best thing. Like, those things, like, start affecting it. But I would say, like, from, like, the first, like, at least 5 minutes, okay? But here's Mr. Z. Look, just because that's, like, basically seeing the soul and the body combined right then and there. Because, like, right now, like, it's, as you grow up, you get the body, the soul, and the world all combined. But as a newborn, it's just the body and the soul.
Okay. I'm not going to dispute that, but I do have a quibble here. Or actually what I have is a question that arises from a quibble. Mind, body, soul. She's not speaking from experience. Well, she's probably been there when she saw it. I mean, you don't have to have created it yourself. Baby becomes a toddler and they start sassing you in English. Okay, that's fair. At the point where they start sassing you, yes, at that point we've progressed to a new level. But here's the thing: if the soul, and by size, the soul is the wrong word. If the spirit, the animating force of the child, were virtuous, although maybe we need to distinguish virtuous from perfect, then it seems to me that there would be no function necessarily to creating a place where that spirit needed to go.
What?
If it were already in a purified form. Now, maybe, I don't know, we're getting I'm getting a little confused between pure and virtuous and whatever.
What?
It seems to me that the function of growing up, Copeland called it wisdom, which I like. But it seems to me that the function of growing up, the function of progress,
Anxiety just coming in and being just
leads through an experience that it seems to me is necessary in order for the spirit to become perfected. And I tend to think, and maybe we'll just have to argue this until I understand what I'm talking about, but it seems to me that the virtues are acquired. Maybe we should list some virtues and then we can talk about that, because virtue is not like one thing, or is it many things? Copeland, don't dislocate something. Go ahead.
Okay, I had this really cool thought yesterday, and I realized age doesn't matter anything when it comes to basically learning virtue. Age doesn't matter. It just happens to correlate with a lot of things. So because you're old, you're not wise, or because you're old, you're not virtuous. It's just that experience tends to grant that to you.
I grant you that, because I am old and I am not necessarily wise, and there are a whole lot of virtues that I seriously lack.
That's why we shouldn't put people in classes based off age.
Ooh, circling around to the beginning. But if I were old like that turtle, see, then I would be both wise and virtuous.
Oh my goodness, you have a turtle. I want it.
What is the there's a turtle rhyme. I have to remember it.
Myrtle the turtle took a hurdle down the fertile?
No.
Field?
Now I have to look it up. This is from the Stephen King's Dark Tower series. That's it. See the turtle of enormous girth. On his shell he holds the earth. His thought is slow but always kind. He holds us all within his mind. On his back all vows are made. He sees the truth but mayn't aid. He loves the land and loves the sea, and even loves a child like me. This is sort of Vedic religious philosophy that the earth is transported through space on the back of a giant turtle.
Who came up with this?
I don't know.
What's it called?
You find out and let me know. But it is a sweet little poem. I love the poem. Plus, it's really great. It's a really great part of the Stephen King's Dark Tower series, which, if you are older, much older, I recommend you get into. When you are a teenager, don't read it. But I don't want your parents to get mad at me, so I'm not telling you to read it. But I have read it twice and thoroughly enjoyed it both times. Anyway. Where was it? Okay, so we listed some virtues: patience, generosity, wisdom. Give me some more. Because, or I suppose I should ask, by raise of hands, how many of you think virtue is one thing, and how many of you think virtue is there are lots of different virtues? We just lump them together and call them virtue, but there's a lot of different virtues. Okay, so if you think it's one thing, raise your hand. Okay, we got a couple people. All right, good. If you think it's a lot of things, raise your hand. Okay, it's probably going to end up being some combo pack of multiples. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I don't know. That's why I'm asking these questions. I don't know. I use this word, but I don't. One category with different ways to fulfill it. Ooh, McKenna's gonna have both her cake and eat it, and that is fine. If you can do that, do it. Absolutely. Behold the cake of endless size.
It's one group of different things.
It's donuts and cake in the same box. The box is virtue, and inside there is an assortment of donuts that are.
Hey, can we make this into an object lesson?
I really like that. I love donut analogies. Extra points for that. Donut analogies are awesome. Okay, so patience, wisdom, generosity, meekness, humility. There are lots of those. There's I can think of there's a scripture that sort of lists off a whole ton of these. I think associated with charity, if I remember correctly. Paul does that. Also Moroni does it. Lists off virtue is the name of a set, and in it are different defining characteristics. Okay, I can live with that definition. I think that's pretty good. So, but then what makes you virtuous? Do you have to possess all of the donuts in the box in order to be virtuous? We're on I-745. If it's 745, then that's probably actually Mormon, isn't it? That's one of the letters of Mormon to Moroni, if I remember.
No, Moroni.
No, is that Moroni?
It's
And
in
then the letters are 8 and 9. Right, okay. Yeah, the letters are Trevor goes, I love donuts. Well, I love Trevor. Okay, so we are friends. Trevor, I love donuts too, man. I'm totally with you. When I come on up to Idaho, I'll bring you a donut. How about that? Okay? Will you share a donut with me when I get there? See, you should have cute little brothers. Then I would bring you donuts. Trevor's like, yep, cool. All right, we're going to share a donut. I'm looking forward to it. All right, so, and Colossians 13, 12 and 13. I like 3, 12, and 13. I like that. Okay, so.
Mr. C.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have a cute little brother too named Andrew.
He's everything but cute.
Hey,
He's not that cute. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, come on.
He's the only one you got, though. So I understand. He is actually, he's kind of cute. He's kind of cute. When he starts raging on the mandolin, there's a high level of cuteness. I think raging on the mandolin is a virtue. I believe that is also a virtue. It's a virtue I do not possess. So, of many, that's actually more of a skill. I don't know. Then oh my gosh. Okay, so
what's the difference between a skill and a virtue?
I really want to know what third nephew 3 through 11 is, though.
Nephi.
I'm just reading the chat, man. I was going to say third nephew is not a scripture I know. I do not believe I have read that.
No, it's Nephi's nephew's nephew.
Oh, cool. All right, then. Yeah. All right, so let's go back to Taya's concept with the newborn here, okay? So a newborn child, she says, is virtuous, but then we listed off a bunch of the donuts. Faith, divine nature, individual worth. Ooh, that's very nice. Okay. So we're talking about a newborn here. Does the newborn possess those virtues?
Yes.
Does it?
Yes, just not by the world's standards, but by God's standards it does.
What? Wait. I do not believe any of my newborn children were particularly knowledgeable.
Okay, but also, with the donut analogy, you don't have to have every single one to be virtuous.
We just said virtue has a bunch of different ways to fulfill virtue.
Yeah, so you don't need
If you only have one virtue instead of the whole package, are you virtuous or do you have to have the whole package?
Okay, you have to. I would say you have to have enough. Like,
What is enough?
Hold
Define
on,
enough.
I'm getting there.
Jeez.
Copeland, hold on.
Babies are not virtuous. They're just perfect.
Like you can have. Okay, you can be really, really dumb. You could be an idiot, but still be virtuous. Okay, and you might not know that much about the world.
Okay, so knowledge isn't a virtue. I got that.
No, knowledge is part of virtue, but it doesn't have to be there.
It's one of the
Wisdom
donuts.
is a virtue, but knowledge is not.
Knowledge is one of the donuts.
Copeland,
It's
you're
not
just
one of the
playing
ones with
games.
sprinkles.
Stop it.
Yes. Isn't that what life is?
Knowledge,
said
knowledge is a virtue. It's just not one of the ones with sprinkles.
Yeah.
Babies are perfect as babies.
I don't need to know history, Mr. C, in order to be virtuous.
Exactly.
I'm sorry, but I don't
Okay, so
know
knowledge is not a virtue?
Yes, knowledge is not a virtue. But
It's one of
wisdom
the
is.
virtues, but you need to have enough to be virtuous. And if you don't have history, but you have a bunch of other things,
What's enough?
that's virtue.
What is enough supposed to mean?
to the
What's the
standards
threshold
of
for
God.
enough?
That is
11.
individual for each person, Copeland.
11,
Okay, what
11
defines
is
the
enough
threshold
virtue. If
for
you
enough?
have 11 virtue, that's enough. Or maybe it's like 14 virtue. I don't know.
It's 42 virtue. So
What about
If
the
you have
10
42
virtues?
virtue,
Everyone has their own standards. So I
Hey,
could have
yo, what's your
five
virtue score?
virtuous,
I'm on 87
but, like, you
myself.
guys could
oh
have 50.
no.
Okay, I would say that it's more how you act and more how you carry yourself and more how you view yourself and your relationship with God over anything else.
Okay. Why?
Because if you value your relationship with God, then you're obeying the commandments, you're doing everything He prompts you to do, and with that, you don't need to be knowledgeable about the world. You don't need these things. He might direct you to know those things and learn of those things because it's important for what you're sent here to do. But as long as you have a strong relationship with God and you understand your worth, that's what's going to make you virtuous.
And if you already have some virtues that doesn't include knowledge, then I don't know. I think that everyone has their own standards that they can live up to, and God has everyone. He knows our true potential. So maybe my virtues, like maybe I need to have more than some of you others, or maybe you guys have more than me. But we all have different circumstances.
Okay.
Well,
all right, hold
everything
on.
that is virtuous
Hold on,
comes out of the relationship of God. Of
Hold
your
on a
rela-
second. I'm muting you. Because we're talking about two different things here. We are talking about virtue as in one sense as a synonym for purity. And in another sense, we're talking about the acquisition of characteristics of the only pure being that we know. Okay, and I think this might be part of the reason that we get confused about this. This is a very difficult thing to grapple with, people. There's a reason that we're reading a 2,000-year-old text about this, okay? And we're still reading this because people have been arguing about thinking about, Evan, I'm going to come to you, okay? I see your hand. I want you to know, okay? I'm not gonna, don't let me forget you. But I want to talk about this for a second. There's a reason that we've been fighting over these kinds of concepts for a couple thousand years because they're really hard to unpack. They're difficult to understand. If this was a simple thing, nobody would read Plato, but we read Plato because it's not simple. And at least he made an attempt to grapple with the idea, right? We'll talk specifically about that text in a minute, but I think we're talking about two different things here. And I think it's important to understand these two different things. In one sense, the virtue that we're talking about is an element of purity. And this is what, when Taya is talking about the newborn, that's what Taya is talking about. The newborn is virtuous because it is pure, because it is undefiled, because it is not contaminated. There are no foreign contaminants. There are no in this child. okay? The child is pure and therefore virtuous if we use virtue as a synonym for purity. But the child is not knowledgeable. The child is not brave. The child is not courageous. The child is not patient. Nothing in the world is less patient than a newborn. Unless it's like your bratty 3-year-old, they can even be less patient. Okay, there's a whole number of these things. Logan, I will work on getting those loaded up so that everybody can see them. I missed I haven't got the last one loaded, and I need to do that. Not one of the ones with sprinkles. Yes. Okay. So we have this curious situation. This is why I think there's two different things here. We have this curious situation in which most people are passionately defending the concept that you can be virtuous without having any of the attributes of virtue. So I think we must be talking about two different things here. I'll grant you the purity thing. But purity is not enough in terms of what it is that we're after for the mortal experience. Otherwise, what would be the point of the mortal experience, right? It's to
challenge that virtue.
I don't think that's. You can't challenge a newborn's patience.
I got it.
Just I got to do Evan first. Okay. But I want to set that up, and then Copeland and then Taya will have a chance to rebut everybody's arguments, because otherwise she's going to like burst a brain cell or something. I don't know. So Trevor's not a bratty 3-year-old. I'm very glad to hear that. No, Trevor's my donut buddy. Trevor's awesome. But I don't believe that a newborn has acquired those virtues. A newborn may be virtuous in the sense that the newborn is pure, but all the virtues that we could list, I don't think newborns have those. I've spent a lot of time with newborns. I love them dearly, love them to bits. I think they're great, but I think there's more to. No, I don't think bravery and courage are the same thing, but don't ask me to separate them, because I really don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. All right. So, wow, we even have like an officially raised hand from Copeland, but Evan was first. So, Evan, I'm done for a moment. I want to set up that I really believe we're talking about two different things. Ready, go.
So I believe, there's like two different things here. Like, a baby doesn't need to be baptized right when it's born because it's perfect. So it possesses that purity and it's perfect at that point, but it's not virtuous because it doesn't have any of those values. But it can still go to heaven if it died younger than 8, because it is perfect as a newborn baby. But eventually it will need some work to be done for it. It's kind of a little bit twisted up. Like, you, at one place, you would have to think, like, every newborn is perfect, but they don't possess virtue. Kind of.
I don't think newborns are perfect. I think there's a difference between being perfect and being pure. Even Jesus did not claim perfection until after he was resurrected. I just want to throw that out there. But
I guess the better thing would say.
We tend to use the words the same way. Newborns are covered by the atonement. They are incapable of sin. But that's not the same thing as being perfect. Being perfect and being sinless are synonymous but not identical. To be perfect, you must be sinless. But being sinless is not enough for perfection. Go ahead, Cope.
Okay, I figured it out. Virtue is being good, whatever that means. Purity is not being bad. So a newborn is not bad, but they're also not necessarily good. So therefore, a baby is pure, but not necessarily virtuous.
Okay. Josh says, I believe it's Josh. Josh is being very quiet today. Josh said he is the quiet one, which is nice because we have plenty of loud ones, so that's good. And McKenna laughs because she thinks I'm talking about her. I love you, McKenna. All right, so virtue is the characteristics of Christ. Christ helped us define what is good. Virtues help us be more like him. So in a way, it's Christ's characteristics. Would anybody argue with that? Can you think of a virtue that Christ did not possess? I cannot. I'm not very smart, but I think I cannot think of one. So I don't think it's possible to have every virtue, but we can try our best to be like him, which also means that virtue can be taught because we came to this earth to learn, with no knowledge, to learn how to come back to him. Okay, as my parents would say, newborns are a pain in the neck. They are a pain in the neck, but this doesn't necessarily mean that they're not virtuous. But maybe it does mean that they're not virtuous, depending on how you define virtue. If you define virtue as purity, then clearly they can be a pain in the neck, but since they don't mean to be a pain in the neck, since they are not sinning by being a pain in the neck, they're just squalling because they wet their britches. I personally think that the ability to use the potty is a virtue. As a parent, I think the ability to use the potty is one of the key virtues.
That one with sprinkles.
That one has sprinkles. And little flags.
Sprinkles and tinkles.
And like filling. Oh, stop. You are banned for 5 minutes now because of that comment.
It was on the very top of the donut chain.
Very top of the donut chain. Okay, so but I want to circle back actually to something that Jesus said. Okay, so a newborn does not possess most of the characteristics that Jesus had, but the newborn possesses one of them in the sense that the newborn is sinless. But that's really the only characteristic that the newborn has that is virtuous, unless being cute is a virtue. And I'm not going to go that far. No. As I like cute as much as anybody, and more than most people I've ever met. But cute is not a virtue. Are we taking a break? Yeah, we'll probably take a break. I don't know. My brain is like in a skillet right now. So we're not taking a break until we fix that part of it. But circling back to Jesus, since it's a good place to go. All right. So understand that when Plato is writing this dialogue of Socrates, he doesn't know anything about Christ. He has no objective standard of virtue to use. So he's using a subjective, rational standard. And you've got to keep that in mind as we discuss this. But we're not constrained by that. So we have access to information, to spiritual understanding that Plato did not have, which is why it's okay with me if you want to disagree with Plato. I do quite a bit, or Socrates, even supposing you could separate the two of them, which is very hard to do because Socrates never wrote anything down. And Plato only wrote stuff down in Socrates' name. So we don't actually know who we're talking to here. Is this actually Plato, or is it Socrates? Or is it Socrates as discerned by Plato, or as remembered by Plato, or as made up by Plato? I don't know. Anyway, so we don't know any of that. But here's the deal. So even Jesus, in his famous statement, "Be therefore perfect," he actually says this twice. He says it once in the Bible, and he says it once in the Book of Mormon. But he doesn't say it the same way both times. The first time he says it in the Bible, he says, "Be therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect." The second time he says it, when he says it in the Book of Mormon, post-resurrection, he says, "Be therefore perfect, even as I, or your Father in heaven, is perfect." Now, this is not proof, but it is indicative. Jesus did not call himself perfect. In fact, he didn't even call himself good.
He did call himself meek.
He did. He possessed virtues, but he himself did not say. They said, what he said at one point, why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, and that is God. It strikes me that I have not actually looked up the Greek for that, and so I'm not sure what the word good means in the Greek, but I'm going to be looking that up. By the way, for those of you who love to appear to be super brilliant, most of you actually really are super brilliant, but some of you like to appear to be super brilliant. In case you have any people who are still willing to talk with you about gospel stuff, here is a way to make sure that that never happens again. You can use one of my very favorite Drive Your Sunday School Teacher, Seminary Teacher Bats websites is a thing called BlueLetterBible.org. BlueLetterBible.org gives you the original Greek and Hebrew of the Bible, indexed in such a way that you can then click on the link and it will give you every instance in the New Testament or Old Testament where the original Greek word appears, not the English word. Because if you search for good, you're going to get like 5 billion things. But if you search for the Greek word that Jesus says, why callest thou me good? There's a Greek word there. When you search for that Greek word, you're going to get a very different set of things translated in lots of different ways. So this will give you the opportunity to raise your hand in seminary and say, well, actually, in the original Greek, the term is blah, blah, blah. And if your seminary teacher did not hate you before that, he certainly will afterward. Or she. Also possible. Yes, and for some of you, you're like, yes, that's exactly what I've been waiting all my life for. Besides, it gives you a chance to say things in class like, you know, in the original Greek, the word is blah, blah, blah. And some of you I know have been dying to do that. So anyway, well, that's great. If your seminary teacher already knows and compares Greek, then that at least will put you on the same plane with him and leave everyone else in the dust, which is also fun. That is not a virtue, by the way.
Boo, boo.
Sophomoric pedantism in class is not a virtue.
Except in this one, it as a virtue.
Except in this class, it's a virtue. But it's not a virtue in every class. So there's another thing. Sometimes it's a box of donuts. Sometimes it's a box of 1-inch thick porterhouse steaks. And it just sort of depends. Like, I don't want any steaks in my donut. Although some people really like bacon top donuts. Personally, I think those people are mad. But I'm
really glad that my
Morgan, do you like bacon top donuts? Are you waving at me for that? What? Oh, and we were friends until now. Shoot.
I'm really glad that my donut analogy has really caught on.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's been kind of handy. All right. Yes, BlueLetterBible.org is oh, sorry, I posted it only to the quiet one because he sent me a message and then. All right, yes, Blue Letter Bible. Thank you, McKenna. She's our web mistress of the day here. All links to be provided by McKenna. Anyway, so using the framework that Christ is, and I'm having to read between the lines here, but there's a difference between salvation and exaltation. We know that, right? There's a difference between being saved, being made sinless, washed clean by the blood of Christ, and having attained to perfection. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point to earthly existence. I mean, there would be a point, but the point would be fulfilled the minute you got here, right? So why go through 70 plus, or in my case, 200 years of stuff when all you can do is move backward?
Life.
But you're not moving backward because there's two different things here. there is a perfection of not having sinned, a sinlessness. And as Taya has eloquently pointed out, you move backward from that almost the minute you get here. And have to kind of fight your way back through the atonement to fight your way back to, but when you get there, you are not over here anymore. You're over here now. You're still on the same level. Now you are still sinless. You have been washed clean by the blood of Christ. But you are not in the same place you were. You have acquired this, you have reacquired the same virtue you came with using Taya's framework, which I think is fair. But you are now in a different place. You are not just saved, you are exalted, which is a different thing. Adam and Eve were sinless, but they were not perfect. They could not be exalted until they had gone through the process that everybody goes through. God could not have exalted Adam and Eve directly from the garden. Could not have done that. Adam and Eve had to go out of the garden in order to acquire the characteristics necessary to be exalted. They had to. Or at least as far as we know, they had to. It's quite possible that there is a theoretical way that you can go from the garden and stay in the garden, but we don't know what that is, so there's not any point in considering it. If there is one, it's not a problem. Elizabeth, come back to us as soon as you can. Well, I don't want weird things to happen. We're going to take a quick break here in a second. Anyway, so this is just kind of reading a little bit between the lines. I think we really are talking about two different things. The virtue of purity is one of those virtues that can only be had there's two ways. One, never have committed any sin. But that also means don't have done anything. Because if you've done anything, unless you're Jesus, you're going to have committed sin, right? So then you lose this virtue. But there's all these other virtues you can only get by going through the process of this life. You only have the virtue of courage if you have tested the virtue of courage and actually been, virtues of gratitude. Newborns are not grateful. They cannot be grateful. They don't have any context for gratitude. Newborns are not courageous. They're not patient. They don't possess any of these exaltable virtues. Jesus gathered them as he went. We just read in Come Follow Me not very long ago, right? We just read Jesus progressed in wisdom and virtue and in favor with God and man. He moved forward in virtue even though he was sinless. He never actually lost the sinless thing. We do. So what is then the maximum curve of virtue? I don't know if this can be mathematically plotted.
Why?
But maybe it can.
You should try it.
I have a book that goes through life and has algorithms for regret, regret minimalization factor. It's amazing.
I would love to see this, although I'm afraid the math may be beyond me. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Yeah, I didn't think virtue was right there, but wisdom and stature and in favor with God.
No one paid to my definition that I gave earlier.
But I don't know what the word stature means there. Now I'm going to have to look the Greek up and see what the Greek word, because I don't think that means that Jesus got taller. I mean, I really don't. I'm sure he did. Okay. I'm sure Jesus got taller. He didn't wander around little baby Jesus this tall for his whole life. Okay. That's not a thing. So
No,
he
only
did
half.
increase in
Mr.
stature
C.
in terms of, but I don't think that's what that means. Evan.
I'm pretty sure that by stature they kind of meant he grew and he got more, he got stronger and probably progressed by growing. So
He filled out.
got stronger.
He acquired virtues.
Yeah.
What did you say, Thea?
I said he filled out because a lot of boys they don't they might grow taller, but then they get broader shoulders. They fill out. Yeah, that's a stature point.
Now in our break. I'm going to look that up.
Midgets are by default sinners.
Algorithms to live by. I'm taking a note here.
It's so good.
Did no one pay attention to my definition of virtue earlier?
Possibly not.
Say it.
Okay. Say it.
All right. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to talk about what Plato thinks, what Socrates thinks virtue is. And we have to talk, there's so much other stuff we got to talk about. I knew this conversation would take an hour at least. I knew it would. And thank you for your participation in it. That was frothy and at one point chaotic, which is very cool.
And no one will ever know my definition unless you scroll back or watch your recording of this.
Oh, well. My life may have to just go on in its sad, pathetic way without knowing what you said.
I was actually answering legit that one time.
That one time.
That one time.
The one time you missed it, Mr. C.
Yeah, well.
I'm going to do something.
Omniscience is a virtue I also do not possess. All right, 5-minute break.
You know me as a student, but not as a person.
Wait, why are we taking a break?
Because we
I don't
can't.
know. Because some people just stand and stretch and just stand and stretch and go get a drink of water. I need to get a drink of water. That's why I'm taking a break. You talk about whatever you want to talk about.
I had a popsicle, a bagel, and now I'm sitting in a hammock, so I'm all good.
I'm looking up what stature is in that scripture.
I'm currently trying to find the scripture. I had it memorized a while
Go,
back. But I can't
Joshy.
remember where it is.
I believe in you.
Is it John chapter 1 or is that Matthew?
It's in Luke.
Is it Luke? It's Luke. It's Luke. That's going to be Luke chapter 2, right?
Maybe.
Chapter 2. Only read chapter 1.
Today I'm going on a camp out to Bruno Sand Dunes.
Sweet.
Really? Hope it's warm
Yeah.
enough. It's going to be chilly, won't it?
Get me a
Yeah, it's
rock.
going to be less than 30 degrees.
Nice.
Yeah, so I'm all packed up and about ready for it.
Yeah, it's Luke 2:52.
Yeah. I just found
Stature is helikia.
and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. It's not grew, increased.
Helikia is age, time of life, adult age, maturity. It seems to indicate that he grew into maturity.
He was no longer a boy.
So the opposite of me.
He was now
It
a man.
appears
with
8
God.
times.
So it's the opposite of me.
It appears 8 times, and it looks like every time. For instance, when Jesus says, which of you by taking thought can add 1 cubit to his stature, that's the same, that's helikia, that's the same word.
I like Kia.
When Jesus says, by what means he now seeth, we know not, or who hath opened his eyes, we know not. He is of age, ask him. Oh, that's not Jesus, that's the wife, or that's the mother of the guy who was born blind. He is of age, that means he's old enough. Ask him to become unity of faith, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ.
Actually, the Greek term is halakia.
Yeah, right, helikia, that's what I said.
Great.
Okay, so it actually does, Jesus. It essentially means Jesus got older and bigger. That is what it means.
Older, more mature, has a better understanding, basically.
Yeah,
Rude
kind of,
man.
yeah.
So he's a man now, and he walks with God for the rest of his life. That's what I'm getting from it.
Helikia, yes. Okay, cool. All right, let's talk about Meno and Plato and Socrates. Okay, the mannequin is creepy. I have to say, the mannequin is creepy. Everything can be mathematically proven. You think so, Josie?
Mathematically proven is one of the easiest things to do in the world.
I don't think everything can be mathematically proven.
I wouldn't say everything, but a lot of things.
Many things I would stipulate to that, but not everything. I think there are plenty of things that cannot be mathematically proven.
We know there's a God that can't be mathematically proven.
He himself has said so. Yes.
Where did math come from? God, boom, mathematically proven.
That's not mathematically proven.
Well, it's close enough.
Explain the creation of the universe through math. I think you probably could, but I don't think we have the math to do that.
Listen, God created the world. Everything else is made in China.
42.
Good one.
Yeah, that was pretty good, Jenny. All right, let's talk about Mano. Getting out of the turtle of enormous girth here. Let's talk about Mano briefly. What does Socrates think virtue is? Or can we tell? Because that's the problem with the Socratic method, is that Socrates just keeps asking questions, right? So what Socrates thinks, you ever actually know?
Socrates doesn't exist anymore.
Socrates doesn't exist. Socrates is a figment of Plato's imagination. No, I do not think this is true.
I bet he could convince it that it is.
Yeah, he probably could. He probably could. The Socratic method has been used as a teaching tool for about 2,500 years. It's my favorite. I like asking questions. I mean, I like talking about what I think as well, but I like asking you guys questions. I like to know what you think. And because you are forced to tell me what you think, you have to understand what you think, otherwise you can't explain it to me, right? Plato believes in a concept called anamnesis. You've heard of now I'm reading anamnesis and I can't remember. You've heard of amnesia, right? Where you lose the knowledge that you had. Anamnesis is the collection of knowledge. According to Plato, or possibly Socrates, we'll just go with Socrates, this is the idea that the soul is eternal and already knows everything and just has to remember the things that it knows.
I love that theory. It's my favorite.
It's a cute one. And there is a certain amount of theological support for that, although it's one of those things, again, that unless there's some sort of math that I'm not aware of, which I'm sure there probably there's no way to prove it. There wouldn't be any distinctive way of proving whether you learned something new or you just remembered something you already knew. But there are times, I think, at least there are for me, do you have this happen where you either you meet somebody or you get into learning about something and it's as if you knew this before? It all seems very familiar.
Deja vu.
Yeah, but more than that. I mean, deja vu for sure, but even more than that, where you, well, with some of you for sure, I have this distinct feeling that when I met you, we were sort of picking up a conversation in the middle, not inventing something. Boy said, it's an alcoholic. He replies saying, you see those 2 trees over there? An alcoholic would see 4 trees. The boy says, but Dad, there's only 1 tree. That's very cute, Evan. That's pretty good. Okay. Have you had that? happen.
Technically,
Now,
in a way that we are starting off in the middle because we met each other in the premortal life.
I think that this is true. Anne Shirley would call it kindred spirit. I love that term. Some of you, I believe, are undoubtedly kindred spirits. I have that happen with my students a lot, where I have I just have the feeling that we're picking up a conversation that we interrupted, and we're just picking it back up. So he talks about that, how maybe virtues can be acquired, but if they can't be acquired, maybe they can be remembered. In the anamnesis, what if the veil is our mortal bodies? I think it has something to do with that. Anamnesis is what that's called. Amaze your friends. And also make sure that you don't ever get invited to parties. The end, and this is sort of a synopsis of this, the end of most Socratic dialogues, have we come to any definite conclusions? Nope.
There will always be something new to discover.
Yes, and we end up in a situation called aporia. Aporia is a situation in which no, you do not know the answer to your questions, but now you know that you do not know. At the beginning, does Meno believe that he knows what virtue is?
He does.
He does. He believes he does. And at the beginning of this class, when I asked you to tell me what virtue was, everybody had opinions about that. There were lots and lots of opinions about it. Everybody's pretty sure you know what virtue is. But the longer we talk about it, I hope, the less certain you become that you actually know that. I do hope. I don't like to stay in aporia. I like to actually come back around to where I know something again. But usually it's modified. It's different than what I thought I knew before. That's what my classes are about. I don't like to leave you in aporia, but I do like the idea that we have to go through aporia and then come out the other side to knowledge. If you want to use the metaphor that I used a minute ago, we start off as the newborn in a particular state, perhaps an innocent state, but not a knowledgeable one. And then we move through lack of innocence and then out the other side to knowledge combined with greater wisdom than we had before. At least I hope so. And I hope that this is a cycle that we repeat over and over and over, because if we don't do that, I don't know why we're doing this class. Wouldn't aporia be a dead end? I don't think so. I think that you can come back out of aporia. Aporia is the state of knowing that you do not know something. But you can come back out of that to a different kind of knowledge.
So wouldn't that imply that knowing that you can't know something, isn't that kind of like you know you can't know it, so that...
No. You know that you don't know, not that you can't know.
Oh.
You start by thinking you know.
Like recognizing your humility.
We know that we don't know what the when the Savior will come again.
For instance. But at some point we will know that. We will move from us, but there are people who think they do know. Those people really need a state of aporia because they do not know. They think they know, but they do not know.
What if it's saying you can't know right now?
There are things that are in that case. For instance, the exact date of the return of the Savior.
Would that be aporia or would that be something else?
That's something else, I think.
Okay.
But I don't know what. Probably there's a Greek word for it, but I don't speak Greek, so I don't know it. And there's always things you don't know. I think it's dangerous to avoid going to the place where you realize that you don't know the answer to something. When we started this conversation today, I was pretty sure I knew what virtue was. But I had not separated it into two different kinds of things. I have long had the concept that perfection is attained by going through a state of imperfection, because it can only be attained through the atonement. And the atonement is no value to you if you are perfect, but you cannot be made perfect without the atonement.
Mr. C.
Yeah.
This reminds me of when we discussed logical fallacies in English class. One thing just keeps going over each other over and over and over again. And so you do the exact same thing, arguing over and over and over again. And there's like, no.
Yeah, I don't like that either. There's a scripture that says they're ever learning but never able to come to a knowledge of the truth. I don't like that one either. I don't think that's a good thing. I think we are able to come to a knowledge of the truth.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Like, why is that bad?
That you're never able to come to a knowledge of the truth?
That you're ever learning.
No. The ever learning part is fine. The ever learning and never able to come to a knowledge of the truth, that is a problem for me. Because otherwise, because if you're not able to come to a knowledge of the truth, why are you learning?
Okay, so how does that state happen in the first place?
What state? Which one?
Ever learning and never coming to a knowledge of the truth.
You could argue that we are all ever learning, even if we don't want to be. Like, we're always learning, although a lot of times I think we are learning pointless and useless crap. That's me a lot. I'm sorry. But how do you come to a knowledge of the truth? Do you do it by the Socratic method?
Depends who you're asking.
I'm asking all y'all. How do you come to a knowledge of the truth? Eliza Beck. How do you come to a knowledge of the truth?
Becker.
I don't know.
Through prayer.
By learning.
Was that Isaac talking in the background there?
Yeah. No. Well, yes, back here, but.
Did you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. That you're not convincing me with that. Yeah, that was more like a question.
Yes, great, amazing, I loved it.
You gotta learn.
How do you come to a knowledge of the truth, though? Can you learn things that are not true? Of course you can. So how do you come to a knowledge of the truth? Isaac says prayer.
Out from the lies.
Sorry, say that again.
You gotta learn all sides.
I wonder about that.
Follow the prophet.
Ooh, Jacob 4:8. Read that. Follow the prophet.
Behold, great and marvelous are the works of the Lord, and how unsearchable are the depths and mysteries of him. And it is impossible that man should find out all his ways. No man knoweth all his ways, save it be revealed unto him. Wherefore, brethren, despise not the revelations of God. Also,
so how do we come to a knowledge? That's beautiful, man.
Also, if you go down and read 13 and 14, they're just as amazing. Well, okay then. He that prophesieth, let him prophesy to the understanding of men. For the Spirit speaketh the truth and lieth not. Wherefore it speaketh of things as they really are, and of things as they really will be. Wherefore these things are manifested unto us plainly, for the salvation of our souls. But behold, we are not witnesses alone in these things, for God also spake them unto the prophets of old. But behold, the Jews were a stiff-necked people, and they despised the words of plainness, and killed the prophets, and sought for things which they could not understand. Wherefore, because of their blindness, which blindness came by looking beyond the mark, they must needs fall. For God hath taken away his plainness from them, and delivered unto them many things which they cannot understand, because they desired it. And because they desired it, God hath done it, that they may stumble.
Okay, I've always loved that they may stumble. We think of God often in terms of he would never cause you to stumble. But I don't think of God that way. I think of God as a God who occasionally does cause you to stumble, because if you stumble, you will see things that you could not see otherwise. He will show unto you your weakness. And then if you bring that weakness to him, he will make you strong. But you have to bring the weakness to him. Otherwise, he cannot make you strong. So if you want to persist in your weakness, if you want to have delivered to you things that you cannot understand because you desire it, okay. And I think that Socrates gets trapped in that. I love the Socratic dialogues. I think they're so much fun, and I like debate and arguing back and forth about it. I think that stuff is fun, but I want to come out of it with knowledge. I want to come out of it with truth. And the only way I'm going to do that, it says in the stuff that Copeland just read, the only way you're going to come out of that is how? There's a word, kind of the longest one starts with an R in the passage that he just read. How do you come out of that?
Revelation.
What?
Revelation.
There it is. Okay. You come out of it by revelation. And where does the revelation come from? How do you constantly have the ability to receive revelation? What do you have to have with you at all times?
The Holy Ghost.
You have to have the Spirit with you at all times.
Or a prophet.
And we know from you can't have the prophet with you at all times. I can't have the prophet with me at any time. He's busy. He's got stuff to do. So do I.
He's too busy being with me.
And I don't really, that's okay with me. I don't really need the prophet with me when I'm taking a shower. I, however, probably could use to have the Spirit with me when I'm taking a shower. So how is it that we go about having the Spirit with us all the time? Every week we go through a little exercise that is designed to remind us how we go about doing this.
Sacrament.
And how does the sacrament give us that opportunity?
Renewing our covenants.
Yeah, forget that. Simpler. Right in the text. It's right in the text of the Lord's Prayer. Not the Lord's Prayer, but in the prayer that the Lord offers.
Remembering.
Remembrance.
Remember. Who?
Jesus Christ.
Jesus. Remembering Christ all the time, that we may always remember him. Jesus says when he blesses the Lord's Supper,
oh God,
this do in remembrance of me.
Bless and sanctify.
And if you remember me, you will have what?
I'm trying to remember. 1 second.
The Spirit to be with you.
You will have the Spirit to be with you. How often?
Always.
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 Go your way and apply this knowledge in your life. This is a truth. And by the Holy Ghost, you may know what?
All things.
The truth of all things. Here endeth that part of the lesson. Let's talk about Aristotle's golden rules of screenwriting. Did you guys look at this article?
Yes.
That was really good.
It was really good, wasn't it? So here's Aristotle, about 2,400 years ago, telling people how to write novels, even though there were no novels yet. We're going to do a play. Probably not today, but we are going to perform one of my very, very dearest favorites. And it has all of these things in it. I will send you the text of that play is some of the reading, my revised text. You can read the real text if you want. That's fun. But I'm also going, Alma, can it be Waiting for Godot? Guy, hate that. Yeah, we need to talk about that because that's an ever learning and never able to come to a knowledge of the truth thing. Waiting for Godot drives me crazy. Okay. There was nothing I don't know in that article. Wow. You know, it must be such a trial to be such a genius. I'm really glad I'm just not that smart. That way I can learn stuff, and learning stuff is cool. So, all right. So tell me about plot. Somebody give me like a one sentence on what is plot.
Like one that already exists?
Sure. What give me what is, if I say, well, I don't understand what plot is. What is plot? What is it?
It's like it's like from the start of the story to the it's the story arc.
The story arc, okay? McKenna.
It's beginning, middle, and end.
That's not terribly different than what you said. Yeah, okay. It is what we would call the story. Okay? So I got up, I took a shower, I went to the grocery store, I taught a class, I came home, I watched some YouTube, and then I went to bed. Is that a story? No, it is not. Okay. I got up, I took a shower, halfway through, the hot water cut out, and I heard a scream from downstairs. Now we have a story, okay? So you need the beginning, the middle, and the end.
No, now we have a cliffhanger.
Well, okay, I went downstairs and it was 3 squirrels playing poker in my hot water heater. And I don't know, I didn't say it was a good story.
Was one of them named Butch?
Yes.
Okay, I know him.
That's not a story either, but that was a good scene right there. That was good, Joey. Okay.
Yeah, happy to entertain.
Yeah, well, you're always good at that. All right, so plot is what we would call the soul, what Aristotle calls the soul of the story. It's what we would call the story. But is that enough? Kenneth says no. What else do you have to have in order to make a good? He's talking about writing a good story.
You have to have
great character
throughout the whole story. You have to have something that will capture your audience. You have to keep it intriguing, and if it gets boring, then it's not a good story. And a good story has to have a beginning, middle, end. So like the beginning is like you show the character's world and you introduce the conflict, and the middle is saving the world and fixing the conflict, and then the end is like it's the happy ending where everything is resolved and then your reader is satisfied.
Or the tragic ending where things are not satisfied, or things are not ended satisfied.
Plot twist and a cliffhanger.
Okay. So we do have a bunch of that. What else do you have to blend with plot
Characters.
in order to make our good story here? What comes next? Okay, so you have a plot.
Characters.
Tell me about that. What does that mean?
It means the people in your story.
Okay,
for example, your story, Mr. C, Butch the Squirrel, and the squirrels were the characters. Unfortunately, your story was poorly laid out, and I didn't know nothing about Mr. C when you told that story.
Okay. So Butch is in the story. Caddy and I are going to write. Okay, that's cool. The plot is the point of the story. What about broken stories? Okay, well, Josie, what about broken stories? What do you mean by broken stories?
Well, what I mean is that there are stories that are like they're happy stories, I guess, like where the conflict all works out. And there are bent stories where it's pretty depressing the whole time. And then there are broken stories where the people are just horrible people and the ending is really depressing. And
I don't think Aristotle would like that kind of story. Do you think Aristotle would have liked that kind of story? I kind of don't think so. For those of you who are not familiar with the terminology, a whole story is a story in which good is depicted as good, evil is depicted as evil, and good wins. A broken story is where good is depicted as good and evil is depicted as evil, and evil wins. A bent story is where good is depicted as evil and evil is depicted as good. I don't recommend to you bent stories.
And then who wins?
It doesn't actually matter at that point because everything's all screwed up. I like broken stories. I prefer whole stories. I like happy endings. I like the villains to be soundly killed at the end, as C.S. Lewis says. That's what I like.
So, I would consider Brandon Sanderson's Skyward book to be a yes, Copeland, but I would consider it to be a bent story because of how it's laid out. And
I haven't read that one, but I intend to.
What do you think, Copeland?
But it would surprise me if Brandon Sanderson wrote bent stories. He is not.
It would.
It would surprise me if Brandon Sanderson wrote a bent story.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, I think your timeout is over.
Okay. Well, I was earlier when we were talking about like the scriptures and stuff. There's a BYUI or BYU speech. Like they give like devotionals every once in a while and they record them. Well, I was listening to one and there's one really good one that's totally applicable, and I couldn't find the link because like my scriptures like lost notes and stuff. Well, I just found it, so here it is. That's all.
Excellent. Aristotle says that your main character at least, must be good. Or if not good, at least has to have enough good in him that you can root for him. You've got to be able to root for him. If he's just nasty, the audience isn't going to be able to root for that character. It's not going to be a very good protagonist. Yeah, go ahead, Evan.
I like stories where kind of like the main character thinks that he's doing the good thing, but really he finds out that he's not doing the good thing, so he switches teams.
Like Mistborn.
Kind of like that.
There's a lot about that. What you're talking about is an acquisition of knowledge story using the Aristotelian plot type things. That's an acquisition of knowledge story. You think you know something, but then you go out and find out that you don't really know it, and then you learn more and you acquire additional knowledge. For instance, he used the Lord of the Rings in the article. They used the Lord of the Rings as an example. Everybody thinks they're fine in the Shire, but the truth is that they're really not fine in the Shire. They in fact are now going to be required to do something noble and brave and foolhardy and go through a great deal of trial and change dramatically, to the point, for instance, that Frodo is never really able to come home again. I mean, he does come back to the Shire, but he's never at home there now because he has become something different. And that's not a place that he can be anymore. It reminds me very much of the poem by T.S. Eliot, which I think is called The Gift of the Magi or something like that, in which the salient line is, no longer at home here with an alien people clutching their gods. And I really feel like that when Frodo finally has to leave. He's become somebody different. He's not comfortable being in that place anymore because of the things he's seen and the things he knows. But Frodo is a good character. The darkness inside him is exposed, but Frodo is a good character. He's not as good as Sam, but he's good. Sam is the best character in Lord of the Rings novels, and that's not open for debate. But Gandalf does that as well, right? He starts off as Gandalf the Grey. He goes through the battle with the Balrog, and he comes back as Gandalf the White. He's acquired new knowledge, power, and strength by having gone through more or less a resurrection process, right? There's a whole bunch of these things in the Lord of the Rings that's just out of all the stuff that we've been talking about. Virtue, acquisition of virtue. How do you know that something is true? How do you acquire knowledge? How do you know who to trust? All that kind of thing. Those make great stories because they're our stories. That's your story and my story. That's who we are. Propriety, true to life. We don't need to talk about that. Tell me about thought. What does Aristotle define thought as in terms of story? Great art is relatable to the audience. Yes, that's right. Well, yes. Great art allows the audience to participate in it even. It doesn't just present it, it allows, that's why we love the great books we love, is because we see so much of ourselves in them. At least that's why I love them. Or sometimes more that I want to see myself in them. This last time reading Ender's Game, for instance, I read Ender's Game when I was your age first. And I wanted to be Ender so bad, like so bad. I just read Ender's Game again a couple weeks ago for probably the 15th time. I don't know. I've read it a lot. And this time I did not see myself as Ender. It's the first time that's ever happened. I saw myself as a completely different character this time. I saw myself as Graf. The character I related to the most was Graf. Graf is the one who's responsible for creating Ender, essentially. He's the one who puts Ender through all the crap that Ender goes through.
I'm disappointed in you.
I'm disappointed in me too, Jetty.
Jetty, we're Ender. He's our teacher.
But I can only, that's the part that scares me the most. It is a huge responsibility to teach you. It is a huge responsibility to teach you. If I really thought about it, it would crush me. So I try not to. You are so amazing. You are so astonishing. You're capable of so much more than I am. And to presume to teach you is a little bit terrifying. Thank you, Josie. That's very nice. I appreciate that. But if there isn't a small part of you that just hates me a little bit, then I'm probably not pushing you hard enough. But I don't want to do that. I don't want you to hate me. But that's part of my job. Also, by the way, it's God's job, and a lot of people hate God for it. I think God is okay with that, but I don't think he's pleased about it. I think it's got a bug in it. I don't know. It's a good hate, and we'll thank you for it later. Thank you. You're all very kind to me, and I appreciate that. Now think for a minute. Diction. What would we call, he calls it diction because he's talking about stage play, right? What would we, if you were writing a story, McKenna, hooray, McKenna.
So, diction, diction is, isn't it when there's lots of people interacting with each other? And
that's a dialogue, a kind of a scene. Okay. Well, I think we would call diction precision and craft in words.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, right. So diction is wordcraft. If you're gonna have a good story, it's awesome to have great characters and a cool plot that everybody's excited about, and to have those characters grow and change, and then to have it deal with universal themes. So that's the thought part. But then if you can also combine it with brilliant craft in language, now you're really getting somewhere. Because isn't it awesome to read a good story, but also the way it's written just wraps you up like a burrito? Maybe a poor analogy there, but still, you know what I'm talking about? Where you read something and you go, oh, that's so good. Sometimes that's not awesome because you get you out of the story for a minute. The writing is so good that you like have to jump out of the story for a minute, just breathe a little, and then go back into it again. I love those. And I remember my father when I was just starting to understand good books. I remember my father was always reading something. He's always reading a book. He still is. And he would stop and say, listen to this, and read me a passage. And I'm like, I don't even understand what that means because I don't know what the story is. He's like, don't think about it that way. Just listen to it. Ah, Jane. Ah, speaker for the dead.
No. Don't go
Not
like
talking about
that. I haven't
not
finished
talking about
the
that
inside yet.
So diction would be craft and language. And then what about song? Did you know the Greek plays had songs in them?
I don't
They
see why
do.
not.
Or they did. They don't anymore. But they did. The problem is we don't have any idea what they were. We don't know what they sounded like. We don't know what they were. Did they have dancing? Was it tambourines? Was it drums? Was it flutes? We don't know because nobody wrote that part down. Remember, you don't have music notation until, the 1500s. So like 2,000 years later, it was the Macarena. Logan. We don't know what it was. We are pretty sure that Greek plays had music. They might have even been musicals, but we don't know because they didn't have musical notation and nobody wrote it down, so we don't know. But there certainly was music involved in it. To go back to Brandon Sanderson, one of the things I love, the many, many, many things about Brandon Sanderson that I love, is he shares his playlists on Spotify. So that you can go, if you follow Brandon Sanderson on Spotify, you can listen to the playlist that he is using to write the story he's writing. Logan, you're awesome.
I'll be right back.
See you in a couple weeks. So yes, music is a part of it, but also music and language. I like to read poetry before I write prose because it makes my prose more poetic, more lyrical, more fun to read. Alan, you're good, man. Glad you were here. And here is an interesting one. What does Aristotle say is the least important part of storytelling? Oh, bye to Evan. Bye, Evan. Too late. I missed it. What is the least important part of storytelling if you're Aristotle? Anybody remember? It's the last one, number 6. No? I think it's kind of ironic. Liza does not know. I can tell looking at her face. Liza does not know. Ducking out of camera is not going to save you. One-armed Joey.
Josh is typing.
Anybody remember what it is?
Spectacle.
Spectacle. What is the thing that many, 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 if not most, movies focus most on? They blow stuff up from the opening credits on. They focus on spectacle. special effects. They want to blow stuff up. Here's one of my favorite examples. I happen to really like the movie Home Alone. I think it's a good movie.
I want to see that.
Home Alone is a good movie. I'll check that, Cope, and I'll get it to you. Yeah, they try to paper over the idea that they don't have a plot by blowing a bunch of stuff up. I love Home Alone. I think it's a very good movie, and I think it's a very underrated movie. What everybody remembers about Home Alone is the cool Rube Goldberg pain inflicted on the bandits as they try to break into the house. But that is a grand total of 6 minutes of the film. And it doesn't even start until the movie is an hour and 40 minutes old. Now, Home Alone 2, the special effects are, the Rube Goldberg stuff is all through this stuff. There is no story. There's no plot. It's just special effects. And the third one is even worse. Jaws is another one of my favorite examples. I happen to think Jaws is possibly the perfect movie. It has pathos. It has character. It has suspense. It has tension. It has humor. Jaws is a fantastic film. You don't even get to see the shark until the movie is an hour and 20 minutes old. It's not about the shark. Jaws 2 is only the shark. Jaws 3 is the shark in 3D. It just kept doing more and more shark, more and more spectacle. That's not why the movie was good. It's not about the shark.
They're making sequels to what the people liked.
Well, but it's what they think they liked. They asked him, what'd you like about the movie? And they're like, oh, I liked it when he dropped the can of paint on the guy's head. Yeah, okay, but you know why you liked that? It's because you cared about Kevin. You cared about Kevin. He was real to you. He mattered, so that's why you liked that. It wasn't the can of paint. It was Kevin.
What was Kevin? Who's Kevin?
Kevin is the kid who's home alone.
Oh. I have to watch that movie.
What you liked, why the shark freaks you out at the end, is because he's attacking a boat on which are 3 characters that you have come to care about. It's not about the shark. That drives me crazy. It drives me nuts. I watch a film and I love that. I love the film, and then they make a sequel, and I'm like, the sequel's gonna suck because they don't remember why the first film was good.
But what about all the people that love the shark?
I've been through so much with that shark. I love him, man.
Look, okay. All right. There are movies, I guess. Are there movies that have sharks as the main character? There are movies that have sharks as a significant
Finding Nemo.
character, like Finding Nemo.
Nemo, Blue Ocean.
G'day, Bruce.
Yes, our friends, not food.
Yeah, okay, right. But Nemo it's a Finding Nemo, not, although, you know what? Finding Dory was good. The third one should be Finding Bruce. Come on!
Yes, that'd be amazing.
Man, I'm gonna be a billionaire. I'm gonna write that film. No, I'm not.
Mr. C, what are your thoughts on Pacific Rim?
What are your thoughts on Mortal
You know
Kombat?
what? Sometimes you can make a movie that's really just spectacle. You know? Sometimes you can. And it's really just spectacle. Frankly, sometimes you need a film where a giant robot hits an alien over the head with a ship. Sometimes you know, with a tanker. Sometimes you gotta have that. The whole film is completely stupid from the beginning to the end. But at one point, a giant robot hits an alien over the head with a super tanker. And so, you know what? Sometimes spectacle may be the least important part, but sometimes if you don't pretend like you're doing anything else, then you know what? Then okay, I guess there's room for that. That's not going to win you Academy Award, but you know what? When it's on, I always wait until that scene comes on and watch that scene, and I don't care about any of the people. None of them matter. I just want to see spectacle. And sometimes, look, you can entertain people with that. There's no plot to throwing Christians to the lions in the Coliseum, but the Coliseum has 80,000 people packed in there to see it.
Ours is like 99.9% all special effects, but it's one of the greatest things ever.
Now, see.
That's your name.
Mr. C.
I am Mr. C. Star Wars, the first one, Star Wars A New Hope, that movie is not about, although the special effects are amazing, that movie's not about the special effects. That movie is about all of us. It's about growing up thinking that you're nobody, wanting to be somebody, and then finding out you really are somebody. That's what that movie is about. And learning how to listen to the spirit when it talks to you. I love that film. That film changed my life, and I would not be teaching this class if it weren't for that film. There have been subsequent movies that were not as, let's just say, attuned to the Force.
You also learn that Darth Vader is your father, and that's a very big step in your life.
Stop!
Come on, you have to admit that the overall series had a great plot.
And Josh, thank you very much for I did see your kind note. I did see it. And I'm actually going to, copy and paste it and stick it on my wall. Because that was super great. Okay, it's already past 11 o'clock. All right, so here's the deal. I gave you an assignment to write a story. Send me the darn story. Send it to me. I want to see it. Write something.
We got to get it written, Jetty.
You got to get it written.
We decided to change all their names. It's not my fault.
Planning to write brilliant stuff is not enough. Actually writing stuff is critical. Write it. I got another writing assignment for you for this next 2 weeks, and then the madness, the mayhem, the incredible, incomprehensible awesomeness that will be the next class we do, which may or may not be on the 8th. At the moment, I'm planning for it to be the 8th, but I guess if the Mighty Becks are planning to be in Utah at the time, maybe we'll swap and do online class on the 8th and then do Idaho on the 15th. I can add.
What's 1 + 1?
I don't know. What do you think? 1 + 1.
Pause button.
Incorrect.
Can we do it on the 1st of February? We'll be in the Philippines.
You'll be in the Philippines on the 1st of February?
No, on the 15th.
Okay, well, all right, as long as you're all here, or at least most of you are here, let's talk for just a second. All right, so the original plan was that next week we're off. I come to Idaho on the 8th, then we have online class on the 15th. It sounds like if we do it that way, we miss the Becks on the 8th, which it is the Becks, but I like them. But if we swap it and I come on the 15th, then we miss McKenna, and I like McKenna too.
Can we swap the
Morgan too. We miss Morgan too, right?
Wait.
Unless you're not leaving Morgan home by herself, I imagine.
What if we what if you come up to Idaho today?
No. What if we swap the free week?
Fine class. I'm gonna be gone though.
That may be a problem for Copeland, who has to keep getting off work to come to this class. And I don't want to mess.
Work isn't a problem anymore. I sort of kind of got fired. There you go.
Cope, don't do that. What, are you working for the government or something? What? Wait, don't do that.
Well,
right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to learn how to do a Google poll, and then we're going to take a poll. because I really want everybody to be there. Does anybody know for certain that they could not make it if we did it next week?
Do you hear that? What? We get to vote someone off.
No, that's not.
Mr. C, you're just gonna have to call our parents.
Jenny, you listen to like half of what I say, which is probably good. Probably it's the wrong half.
At least you listened to half of it.
A Quiet Place is not about the monsters. Right. Yes. Right. I haven't seen it. I've got to see it.
Really good. What are you talking about? Quiet Place is totally
yes,
about
Abby, there's homework. I'll have to send it to you. If you're already gone, then I'm going to, all right. All right. So here's what, the 8th is in 2 weeks. I don't know what's happening next week. So what I want is to be able to do this so that everybody can be there. So I'm going to send out today, in a few minutes, an email that you have to pay attention to and talk to your parents about, and then respond. I need you to respond to me, okay?
Respond.
So that I can make a plan like right now, because if I'm going to be coming up there, I got to make a plan right now. Yes?
Okay.
Good? Yes?
Just responded.
Okay?
Well,
I really, really, really want everybody to be there. And like when somebody is missing, I notice and it bugs me. Like we've missed Emma a couple weeks in a row now, and I'm not happy about it. So write a story, done. If you've written a story, send it to me. Okay, good, yes, all right. I'll send you guys an email, and we'll talk about what we're going to do. So one way or the other, we're going to see each other a couple times in the next 3 weeks, which is awesome. My email address again is mrc@aliasmrc.com.
Bye, Joshy.
Okay, bye.
Bye, Mr. C.
There you go. Adios. Oh, for pity's sake. See you guys at another time.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Adios. Don't die.
Keep your blood on the inside, kittens.
Bye.
Arrivederci.
Bye.
Au revoir. Farewell.
Great job today, McKenna. Taya, way to kick this thing off. High gear today. That's because of you, I think. Thank you for all your kind comments and attention and your cute little brothers.
I'll now play my kazoo because I can. Get it? Coke's motto is because I can. And that
Logan, I put the email address in the chat. See you guys.
Bye.